So I took that to heart. So I decided, based on that letter, which was all this serendipitous result of me losing my wallet, that I was going to go away and do what we call in England a gap year, which is exactly what you say, go drinking in Australia. So I told my dad, and he said, what on earth is a gap year? This wasn't particularly popular, at that time. And I said, I'm going to go find myself on the beaches of Thailand. And he said, well, if you do that, you can go get yourself a bloody job. So that's when I had to go and start earning more cash. But eventually I did. I went away backpacking. And at the age of 18, to literally just disappear off. And the first place I went traveling was actually in South Africa, which is pretty dodgy, in that time. I went to Zimbabwe, which at the age of 18, it was the first time I'd had a gun pulled on me by a taxi driver who tried to rob me. So it was all really quite, it teaches you a lot about independence.
So what did you learn about how to handle getting a gun pulled on you by the taxi driver?
Well,
you can't just throw that out there and think we're just going to let it ride.
So I'd been in.
So you're in Zimbabwe.
So I'm in Zimbabwe. I was traveling. I'd met this random Dutch dude who was much older than me. I was 18. This guy must have been 29, 30. And he was backpacking as well, and we were on the same route. And we got off the train at a place called Bulawayo, and we sort of got into a taxi and asked the price to whatever the next bus station, and he said it was going to be $40, which Zimbabwe has dollars, so 40 Zim dollars was equivalent of about $2, and we were like, yeah, no problem. So we put our bags in the trunk of the car, off we went, and it was like 2 minutes around the corner. We thought, okay. We got out and he said, okay, $40. We got the Zimbabwe dollars out and he said, no, US dollars, $40. And we thought he was joking and laughed at him. He said, no, put his hand in his jacket, pulls out a pistol and said $40. And we were like, oh shit, okay, well, I don't have $40. I'm on a budget of about $2 a day, right? So we said, okay, we'll pay, but let us get our bags out. And it was quite a busy, crowded sort of car park. So we got our bags out of the boot, and this Dutch guy, who's quite a hefty fella, he said, "Okay, come over here." And the taxi driver, he put his pistol in the car. He got out, so he was unarmed at the time. And this guy just sort of, as he got his bag on his back, just headbutted this taxi driver right, and then looked at me and said, "Fucking run!" So I ran and we escaped. But this guy, then we jumped in another taxi and said, "Drive." So, but the original guy was then chasing us through the streets of Bulawayo. So I had not only my first sort of gun pulled on me, but my first car chase at the age of 18, which was all pretty wild. But it was those early travels that sort of encouraged me to sort of, be careful, be independent minded, and start to think about looking after myself.
What are the chances that you made it back through the first year of travels?
Well, after that experience, it was all fairly tame, I have to say, but getting drunk in Australia. But it was great. And it was probably that first year of travel really that motivated me to want to do more, because apart from that one sort of moment, it was usual backpacking stuff. But throughout my time at university, I went to more and more challenging and interesting places. I went to, in my second year at university, I was studying history. And my particular interest was the history of travel writing. So I looked at Marco Polo and his travels. I was reading about the hippie trail of the 1960s, the great pilgrimages, all the big overland journeys. So I tried to make all my studies around that. So in my summer leave, I would try and go to the places that I've been studying around. So after one particular module, bear in mind this was in 2001, just after 9/11 had happened, so there's a real focus on the Middle East, and that was a place that I was fascinated by because of the history, but also what was going on in the news at the time. So me and a buddy decided one summer that we were going to go and travel around the Middle East. This was in 2003, so it was a second year at university. The Iraq War was happening, and we said, okay, we're going to go to Egypt and just have a look around. Then we went to Israel, and then when we were in Israel, there was a bomb went off in Jerusalem, caused the borders to shut. So what we'd planned to do was take a boat from the coast from Haifa to Greece and then go backpacking through Europe. That was all now not on the cards. My parents thought me and my mate Alex were actually on holiday in Greece at the time. Anyway, so they had no idea where we actually were. The only border that was open was to the east, to Jordan. So we went to Jordan. And then we were in Jordan, another bomb went off, which meant that we were stuck in Jordan. The only border then was open was actually further east, which was to Iraq. So we took a taxi from the capital of Jordan, Amman, all the way to Baghdad at a cost of $20. I was 21 at the time, or 20. And I was met by a National Guardsman on the border who said, do you want to buy a gun? He said, you're going to need it where you're going.
This is 2003?
This is 2003. And we got to Baghdad because it was the only route that was open.
When in 2003?
August. Yeah.
So the wars, it's on.
It's on. Yeah, combat operations are just finished, more or less. But it was before the main insurgency had begun. But
right.
yeah, stuff was definitely exploding around us at the time.
And what part of this idea sounded smart to you?
Well, we didn't have another option. We couldn't afford to fly home from Israel because we had no money, and we thought it would just be a bit of an exciting adventure. And so we made it to Baghdad, but then we stayed in the Hotel Palestine, which was the in the green zone.
Oh, I know where that is. That's freaking crazy.
But we couldn't afford a night there because it was $100, which is a lot of money when you're a student. And so we thought, okay, this was just after somebody had just shot the top off the hotel because they thought there was an Iraqi insurgent. It was actually a camera crew. So we thought if we can sneak up the fire escape, up the ladders, then we can just sleep amongst the rubble on the roof. So we did that. We got onto the roof, and then there happened to be a British film crew filming a news piece on the roof, and they said, what are you idiots doing here? And we explained that we were sort of backpacking through the Middle East, and this guy, I'll never forget his name, Martin Geisler, who's an ITN correspondent, said, look, you must be the first tourist in Iraq. I tell you what, if we can do a news piece about you, we'll pay for your room. So we ended up staying for a week because we couldn't get out of Iraq at this point. And eventually we managed to escape by hitching a ride with some former SAS mercenary security guys who were doing the route up to Tikrit, which was before Saddam Hussein had been captured. So we were actually in Tikrit before Saddam, whilst he was still down his little hole. So eventually, long story short, we got out to Turkey and then eventually did find our way back to Europe.
Major amount of survivor bias on this whole thing. So anyone that's listening, you have to overcome this survivor bias. I'm going to recommend not particularly following this extreme level of let's just go for it. What are you carrying in your backpack?
As little as possible, a shemag, just so we could kind of blend in. We had to go to the local market to buy your sort of traditional.
How many liters is your backpack?
Just a day sack. So we're talking 25 liters.
You've got a 25 liter backpack.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. And we even put that, those sort of plastic big bags, the sort of check ones that people go to the market in the Middle East, just so we didn't stand out. And we bought those, shiny shirts and black shoes that they wear in the Middle East, so that we, I'm quite sort of fairly dark skinned, so we could blend in. And it worked, and we were just sort of walking around the markets of Baghdad, and it was fine.
Do not try this at home. No. Do not try this.
Well, I didn't tell my parents till about 6 months later.
So then you finally get out. How'd you get back? You just hitched a ride with some contractors.
Right up to the Turkish border, and then hitched all the way home to the UK.
How hard is it to hitchhike these days?
I hitchhiked last week actually in the States.
And you got picked up pretty easily?
Yeah, it's fine. It depends where you are, but I used to love it because it was a great way of meeting interesting people. And in fact, it's
also a great way to get kidnapped.
It can happen. But I think what my trips had taught me was you've got to have a bit of faith in human nature.
Yeah, you have way more faith in human nature than I do. I've done too many of these podcasts to be jumping into vehicles with random people. It's weird too because when I was a kid, and I don't know, I guess I'm 10 years older than you, maybe. Yeah, something around 10 or 12. But when I was a kid, hitchhiking was very normal.
Yeah.
You'd see it all the time. People, you go getting on the highway, there'd be people hitchhiking. It was no big deal.
If I missed the school bus, we'd hitchhike to school and things like that, yeah.
But nowadays,
people are more scared.
It's way more scared. And I guess that's part of that is just news is more prevalent. Well, like when someone gets kidnapped and freaking raped and murdered, you know about it. Whereas in 1978, it was just no factor. Yeah. No, that in your mind, that didn't happen to people. You trusted human nature.
Yeah. Yeah.